Hi everyone, my name is Bonnie Hayman. I'm a school counselor at La Mesa Arts Academy and also a life coach at Cultivate Counseling Collective. I just wanted to share a couple of tips that can help us as we are trying to navigate this very crazy season with little ones. Especially those of you that are trying to manage the learning environment for your children, these are tips that might be helpful for you. The first thing I would say is please understand that this is not the same thing as homeschooling. It's not the same thing really as true distance learning. We are really in crisis learning mode, corona schooling if you want to call it. And so it's important to keep our expectations realistic. We entered into this without a lot of preparation, and there's an overlay of fear, maybe even trauma for ourselves as well as our children. So we need to understand that as we think about our expectations on ourselves and also with our children. So I'm just going to give you 6 tips that might be helpful, especially as you're thinking about how to manage the learning environment for your children. The first tip I would say is make sure that you have some form of structure or schedule in place for your family during this time. It doesn't need to be rigid, but just some general guidelines. Chunk up the day so that we know that there's some time for outdoor activity and some time for rest, that there's some time for some structured academic, maybe reading, maybe working on something that is consistent with what your school may have given you. But not a minute by minute schedule. You're going to see ebbs and flows in your children's energy level. So really listen to that. Maybe even a system where part of your structure is that you do a check-in as a family, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, just to gauge how are we doing today? Is this a day that we're going to take on a bigger task like cleaning out a closet? Or is this a day everyone's really kind of working at a lower capacity? It's going to go better if we can really pay attention to that. But the importance about structure and schedule is that it provides some consistency for children in a time that so much is uncertain. That consistency can come in the form of knowing there's going to be a daily check-in. It can mean that meal times are set or predictable, as well as bedtime. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about how to navigate these kind of wide open spaces. The second thing I would say is allow children's natural curiosity to drive their learning journey. Rather than looking at a prescribed packet or something that you saw someone else doing online that you think is what you need to or ought to be doing with your child right now, really listen to where their interest is. This is a season where we can explore and run with what comes up in the natural learning curiosity that happens. In life, what happens is we have questions or needs. When those questions or needs arise, we are ready to learn and we'll begin to do the research to answer those things. So the same thing can happen with our kids. That question might come in the kitchen. It might come in the form of how do I double this recipe? And now we're talking fractions. Or maybe it will come in after watching a movie with your child and they have some questions about a period of history, and suddenly now we have the opportunity to do a lesson there. So really listen to where they're curious and run with that. And that's going to be more authentic and more meaningful learning in a time like this. The next thing I would say is we have a unique opportunity to really model innovation in our homes. We have limited resources and we have to work with what we have. We didn't have a lot of time to plan for this, and we can't run out to the store and get things for a science activity. So we do have resources though within our home, and the most important resources is our own skills and interests and passions. So this is a time to really explore that. If your child has an interest in art or music, run with that. If your child has an interest in being outdoors, then this can be a great time to do some learning in that way. But we're going to model innovation, and we're going to show kids that we can be flexible, that we can work with less, and that we can come up with new ideas that don't involve some of the traditional ways of accessing things. The next thing I would say is find ways to empower your child right now. Probably the most effective way to empower your child is to give them choices. Those choices might come in the form of choosing or helping to have a say in the structure or schedule of the day, what they're going to eat, what chores they want to do first. But whatever way you can create that ability for them to feel involved in the process, that again will provide some sense of security and some sense of control. I would say probably the most important thing that you can do right now is honor this season. And by that, I mean find a way to mark it, whether that be through journaling or art projects or a scrapbook or taking a picture a day. Whatever you can do that says, this is what I did when I participated in this time in history. And this is the way that we can remember it and that we can draw the best out in it. When you look to honor the season or record it, do it with an attitude that has gratitude all over it. That's going to be a really important piece. For a lot of families, that might look like a gratitude jar or gratitude list, where we keep track of the things that we're grateful for, the things that are really blessings in the midst of this difficult time. You can also have a list of things that we miss, things that we're looking forward to. And maybe even another one that says things that I'm going to miss about being in quarantine, and just noticing that. So the last thing that I would say is make the best choice each day. Do the next best thing that you can. There's going to be choices. And so I would say when the choice is between arguing over a chore or getting a worksheet done, choose connection, choose family time over everything else. Choose time to just relax together, laugh together, hold one another, and we'll get through this time. Remember that we're in this together, and you are not alone. So please reach out to your community. There are other people going through the very same thing. And sometimes it just means somebody else saying, it's like that for me too, I understand. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me, and look forward to the time that we can see each other face to face.